Okay, well, welcome everyone, and thank you for attending the Redevelopment Commission for the month of August. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Take roll. Do we need to take roll?
Yep. Want me to do it?
Yes.
Sure. Carl Baxmeyer?
Here.
Tyler Gillian, not present yet.
He's in the waiting room now.
Is he in the waiting room?
Yep, up top.
Let's get him.
There he is.
Just so everyone knows, Tyler woke up this morning without a voice, so he'll be voting thumbs up, thumbs down today. But we'll show Tyler present, Jason Critchlow,
Here.
Tom,
Here.
and Dennis.
Here. All right, thank you. Approval of minutes. Hopefully, I do know everyone received a copy of the minutes. Didn't know if anyone had an opportunity to read them or have any questions or corrections to bring before the board.
Nope.
No? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Okay, with the motion second, any questions? Hearing none.
Mr. Baxmeyer.
Aye.
Tyler? Mr. Tyler votes yes. Mr. Critchlow?
Yes.
Mr. Gripe?
Yes.
And Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Economic Development Area Updates.
So before you are the financial updates for all of the TIF areas for both June and July, since we missed it last month. Want to just first show you that in the revenue sections on all those, the TIF revenue came in at the end of June, beginning of July, so there are kind of big money items in that revenue area that have pushed up. From an expense standpoint, you'll see in 4302, there's been a lot of expenses in the consultants and contracts, which is mostly legal, so it's dealing with Project Honeysuckle, and then also dealing with some other projects in the area. So there's been a lot of kind of legal expenses in that line item. In the bond fund, you'll see expenses related to the property acquisition that was approved from the town of Carlisle. This is this small little portion of land that was near the Energy Center. AM General shows the normal expenses dealing with Capitol Avenue pathways, Dragoon Trail Path, and then the demolition of the house on the Elm site.
Is that complete?
Should be by the end of next week.
Yep. And then the Redevelopment Commission is kind of the normal legal expenses, and then some work related to the Great Western Preserve project and some potential future projects. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anyone have questions or better explanation of anything? Any item?
Okay. Next item on the agenda is 3A2. Okay. 3A2, and I just wanted to make note, TAI Ginsburg is one of our consultants that we use. They received an award this past year, second year in a row they've received this advocacy award. So I just wanted to make note of that. So when we talk about consultants and those that we like to bring into the team, this has been a huge win for us, working with them. They were instrumental in helping Elkhart and Western Railroad get the Chrissy grant that was awarded a couple months ago. So just as we continue our relationships with our various vendors, I just wanted to make note of that.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2022-12. So essentially what we're doing is we're transferring money from one line item to the next. These were the encumbered fees for the EDA broadband project that is now finished, and so there are no expenses. So essentially last week we unencumbered the funds from the PO that was a part of, and then we would like to move those funds up to the 39215, which is the economic development line item account, if you will. And this is kind of to buffer that account for future projects as we move forward. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
That would move that account to zero into one fund and
Yeah, we just kind of released the funds basically out of that PO, and those were all under the special projects account, so we're just moving it up to that 39215 account.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2022-12?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion or questions?
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Baxmeyer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Gillian, how do you vote? Mr. Gillian votes yes. Mr. Critchlow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Gripe, how do you vote? And Mr. Jordan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
The next item on the agenda is the South Bend Regional Chamber Economic Development Service Agreement, and this is a revised agreement. Originally, we had a contract that we approved last year through the Redevelopment Commission for 2022, 2023, and 2024. As we've continued to work with the Chamber this year on lead response and several other projects, the continuing ed or the education project with South Bend Schools and the other local schools, and several other workforce projects and things like that. As we've looked at our budget internally, as we've been asked to look at 2023 and beyond, we determined it was appropriate to have a conversation about extending this contract out to year 2028. So it would be a longer contract. It would also have an escalator agreement in there. So after a couple of years, the contract would go from a contracted amount today at $120,000 to 125. It would go from the current amount to 120,000, then to 125,000 for the final 2 years. As we look at staffing internally, you can't buy an employee for this kind of amount with services and things like this. And the service that we get from the chamber, I mean, they've done 47, we've had 47 major projects come through and all sorts of opportunities to bring major projects, not only to the IEC area, but also to other parts of the county. I believe this is a good contract, should be amended, should be extended so that there's just certainty in that relationship. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
For me, Bill, just the funding source. We changed the budget this year to change how this got funded through the county.
Right.
And we are taking a greater portion of that. Redevelopment
Well,
is taking a greater
so
portion.
redevelopment has paid for the last several years 100% of any contract with the chamber. So that won't change as far as the relationship between this budget and any other budget. So
Oh, I
this will be
see.
100% out of the redevelopment budget still.
Okay.
We just split it among different funds.
Yeah.
So not
Right,
all
no,
gets
I
paid
got
out of-
that. Yeah, yeah. That was all that I had.
Is there a motion to approve this contract extension or contract?
So
Can I ask a question first?
Well,
Um,
normally,
Did you negotiate at all to get the best deal we can, or did we just start with what they were paying and then start kicking it up?
So we started with the contract amount at 105 that we had, and then our contract amount in the final 2 years will be the same as the contract amount that City of South Bend pays as a municipal partner. So that's the rate that's been established, and that will be the rate going forward for municipal partners.
Okay, thank you.
all right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? No?
A motion and a second. Mr. Baxmeyer, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Mr. Gillian, how do you vote? Mr. Gillian votes yes. Mr. Critchlow?
Yes?
Mr. Gripe?
Yes,
And Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
The next two items on the agenda are really as a result of some smaller group meetings with the redevelopment commission members. One of the redevelopment commission members asked, what do we need to be more successful with some of our projects, and how can we be more efficient responding to leads? One of the things that our engineering division does is has on-call agreements with different engineering firms in the community. These on-call agreements allow for quicker response when there's an immediate issue or some type of issue that just needs to happen faster than the regular agreements that usually work through these bodies. So what you have before you today are two on-call service agreements. The first is with Lawson Fisher Associates. We use them for a variety of things. They do a lot of the property work with us for lead responses, help with providing survey information or site planning for lead responses. They serve on our lead response team, so if we have a site prospect in, they come to the meetings and spend hours assisting with that. The on-call service agreement before you today is in the amount of $75,000. At any time that we choose to use this account, we would be very judicious with it. It would be used for special projects, special instances that need to be dealt with immediately. Any regular project, whether it's a bigger scale design or a survey project that has multiple layers, would come through the regular Redevelopment Commission process. We will provide regular updates on the task summary sheets provided against the $75,000 as part of our budgeting so that everybody knows where we are with those contracts. But this one and the next one with Christopher Burke, I believe, are right now, based on the amount of work that we have going through the office, are extremely valuable for us to keep up and move forward with everything going through the process. Any questions about the one with Lawson Fisher? The Christopher Burke one, which is the next item, same amount. And again, they serve on our lead response team and help specifically with issues of wetlands, environmental issues, and hydrology, and other specific things related to very specific requests of project leads. So any questions about either of these two, I'd be happy to answer.
So just to be clear, when, if hypothetically, if we never use them, would we still pay any of the 75,000?
He said, hypothetically, if we never use them, will you still pay the $75,000?
No, this is strictly an on-call, so it would be billed as services are needed. So it's an up to amount of $75,000 that would not be charged against unless there was work charged against the account.
What's the hourly rate?
It's not in there.
I don't think it's in there.
I don't, we can get that information for you. That's a great question. I mean, it's the standard hourly rate we get billed, I'm sure, for all of our other projects.
All right, I'm concerned when you have these things and we don't know what the hourly rate is, and obviously we didn't negotiate that rate. I don't know, I think we could have done a better job on that.
So I would be happy to get that information. Why don't we table these to our next meeting, and then we'll get that information and then put that in as part of a fuller request, if that would be suitable.
Philosophically,
That
Bill,
would be
then,
me.
so, we'll table it, but then we wouldn't see these bills essentially because we wouldn't have to approve them, this body. So for transparency's sake, if the public wanted to see it, is that just through a standard request? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it would never be presented in a public meeting.
Right, what we would do as part of our billing, we would set these aside as part of our billing reports, and if there's specific task summaries that are assigned to those two contracts, that information could be provided on that report, on the monthly report.
So folks would just request it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it would be part of the monthly report
Oh,
presented
just part
here.
of the
so,
report
yeah,
here? Oh, that
yeah.
makes sense.
Just so that could be tracked again.
Oh, yeah, that
so,
makes total
The
sense.
monthly narrative, we could just separate it out to say this was what's listed.
Yeah.
It seems like it's needed, though, so, I mean, I support it philosophically.
But I understand Tom's question. We'll get the billing information. That's fine.
We've had this in the past.
We have not, the Redevelopment Commission have not. The engineering department has. They have probably, I don't know how many they have active and open right now, but this would be new to us. And based on the amount of the work these two firms do for us on the lead response side, we're asking for a lot of work and a lot of, hey, we've got open contracts, we're trying to get them done, but we need to have something a little more formal to do that side of things, so.
Philosophically, I don't have a problem with it. I was thinking we had that in the past. I was going to say, could you give us an example of?
Yeah. So this is kind of this would be a new practice for us is, again, just based on the amount of work coming through on the lead response side of things. This is where this is really being driven, so. But we can table for a month and get that information. That's fine.
Is that just
A
tabled
motion.
by them, or do you need a motion?
Motion to table would be appropriate.
Tom, make your motion.
I move that we table this until next month.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Can we ask that the motion be tabled to the next available meeting?
Then
In the event
That
that
sounds
there's
better.
something between.
he amended it.
Would, okay. So Tom,
Okay.
Mr. Gripe has amended it.
Second.
Mr. Baxmeyer, how do you vote?
Yes,
Mr. Gillian, how do you vote? Mr. Gillian votes yes. Mr. Critchlow?
Yes.
Mr. Gripe?
Yes,
And Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Matter is taken.
Thank you. We're on to the Bendix Woods.
Just to be clear, was that motion and tabling for both items?
For both items,
Okay.
so next available meeting.
Perfect.
Yes,
Okay,
thank
thank
you, Mr. Shalia.
Bendix Woods County Park, Nature Center Technology Upgrade. Generally, I don't ask for technology for other facilities, but I will tell you that over the last several months, we've been using the West Wing room, which is part of the Nature Center building at Bendix Woods, for prospect meetings, and we've used them for a couple committee meetings and things like that. While they have some basic level technology in the room, trying to do virtual meetings with the technology they have, specifically the microphone and speaker systems, just is inadequate. So it's kind of a trade-off to the Parks Department for free rent of their space. We have talked to them about being able to continue to use the space, but we would upgrade the technology. The technology would be provided by New Era Technology, who does the tech in this room and several of the other rooms in the County City building. The amount is $8,585. It's a very fair request, provided not only for our use, but the park's use and community use. So we think this is a great investment in the park. So would ask for your favorable approval, please.
Is there any discussion? No. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd move to approve.
Does anyone second the motion?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Garrett?
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Baxmeyer, how do you vote?
yes,
Mr. Gillian, how do you vote? Mr. Gillian votes yes. Mr. Critchlow?
Yes.
Mr. Gripe?
Yes,
And Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
The next item on your agenda is Resolution 2022-10, and it's a purchase agreement for property that is described as the Option B parcel. It's land at the northwest corner of Walnut Road and Early Road. Over the last several months, staff has been working to position the land parcels contained within the Indiana Enterprise Center Site 1 to improve the marketability of the site and to prepare the site for future site certification. As this has progressed, it was determined that a property located at the subject property would be a strategic acquisition due to the location of the parcel and the natural characteristics of the parcel. The 70-acre parcel is adjacent to land the Redevelopment Commission presently owns, which is the inland parcel at the southwest corner of Walnut Road and Edison Road. The main purpose for the land purchase would be to facilitate the development of a future rail corridor that is proposed for development within the IUC core development area. The parcel is also bisected by the Nespajani Ditch, and approximately 40 acres of the site are wooded and contain wetlands that can serve as a permanent buffer natural area for the IUC. The 40-acre natural area will be combined with the 28.94 acres on the northern parcel, which is already designated within the Indiana Department of Natural Resources as a certified forest. The purchase price for the subject parcel is $2,437,480. At the present time, the county has an option agreement, Option B, to purchase the entire parcel, and the purchase price is $55,000 per acre, which would create a value for this site of $3,850,000. During negotiations with the property owner, we were able to determine a price to discount the difference between the buildable acreage, which is 29.11 acres, and the protected acreage at 40.89 acres. And it was determined that an offset in the loss of farmland could also be offset by allowing the property owner to purchase county-owned land located on Snowberry Road at the appraised value of $141,300. So the property that we're asking to purchase here is strategic to activities that are happening within the IEC Site 1 area. It would be used for rail purposes. It would be purchased at a total price, assuming that we can get through some other steps with the Snowberry Road property, at a total amount of $2,296,180. We would anticipate a closing within this month to move forward with that acquisition. That allows this property to be used to purchase other farmland as well as the farmland owned by the county. Again, it's being purchased at a discount compared to the option price, and then would also have land that would be set aside as reserve land or natural land, which would allow us then to offset some other environmental conditions within the IEC area. Staff would very favorably request your approval of this proposal. Any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
I would comment that as far back as 2009, we've talked about the need to get this parcel, so it's not something that's recent. And it is, we're buying it with the intention that should it be developed, that we would be reimbursed for those funds as part of whatever project would be put there or would choose to be there.
Correct.
Okay, is there a
What
motion
fund will the
to
money come
approve?
from to purchase the property?
Tom's talking.
What was that, Tom?
Where will the money come from? Which fund to purchase the land?
So earlier this meeting, we put that, we transferred that money from one item to another. So it would come out of the capital bond fund, which is 4303. This is a bond fund that is kind of was specifically created to do very certain projects. Property acquisition was one of those types of projects. We're very limited on what we can do with those bond funds. So property acquisition was one, and it's also a fund that we need to spend down relatively quickly, because it's been out a couple of years, and so I know our financial team has been kind of working on it. So this kind of works in that favor of starting to spend that down.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
Yep.
And just for clarity, Bill, so what you're saying is the parcel contains acres that are not buildable and acres that are buildable.
That's correct.
So when you take the total amount altogether, the county is paying a discount, essentially, in total from what we had in the option agreement.
Yes. So we paid, just from a clarity standpoint, we paid $55,000 as an acre for the buildable land, and then a discounted price for the remainder of the land. And then, again, the total value is then less by $141,300, which is the value of property that's been appraised on Snowberry Road that the county owns. So that would be part of this larger transaction.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve this transaction?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Questions? No?
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Baxmeyer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Gillian, how do you vote? Mr. Gillian votes yes. Mr. Critchlow?
Yes.
Mr. Gripe?
Aye.
And Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
So the next item on the agenda is, this was a late ad, and I do apologize for that. We had worked through to get this into the agenda. So this is an amendment to purchase agreement A, or option A, I'm sorry. So resolution 2022-11 is an amendment to option A. So when we, back in 2021, we obtained 3 option agreements, option A, option B, option C. These were for 3 different parcels that make up IEC Site 1. The amendment to option A is specific to a couple of things, some key points. It created a timeline related to the harvest of the fields. The agreement had it was very vague and open-ended, so there's some very specific timing related to the harvest of the crops in the fields, specifically the corn and the beans. So the earlier of October 31st or the harvest of those crops would be the date established as the time related to that. Also created some understanding and timelines related to the clearance of tenants on the property and the vacation of the farm operations center, and also some specific language related to the abandonment of pivots after the harvest date. In the event that there's additional work that needs to be done for removal of pivots, the closure of any wells or removal of any debris from the woodland area on the site, we affectionately call the mitten. It's a 14.2 acre piece of wooded area along State Road 2. Those costs would fall to the Redevelopment Commission at a future point. But this Amendment A is critical to moving forward with some projects in IEC Site 2, or IEC Site 1. If there's any questions about the amendment, we would be happy to answer them.
Anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay. In that case, we will entertain a motion to approve resolution number 2022-11.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Critchlow. Is there a second? I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Baxmeyer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Gillian, how do you vote? Mr. Gillian votes yes. Mr. Critchlow?
Yes.
Mr. Gray? And Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
The next item in the packet is the monthly report from Cogent Industrial Partners. As part of the agreement with Cogent, they would provide a monthly report. I'm just including that for your review.
So the next item in the agenda is related to Project Honeysuckle. So in July, we got the development agreement all signed by all parties. So Redevelopment Commission, Council, and Commissioners, and has been signed by Lightsource. This is the next step in moving that TIF area forward. So this is a declaratory resolution to declare the area an economic development area. And I would also invite Phil Facenda, who wrote the resolution and is well-versed in EDA and TIF kind of creation, to give just a brief overview for everybody.
Mr. President, members of the commission, Phil Facenda from Barnes & Thornburg, 201 South Main. This is the first time I've used that address before this body. So as Chris mentioned, this is a declaratory resolution. It is, this step is laid out in the development agreement that was approved by the commission previously. There are essentially simultaneous steps that are going on, and any those familiar with the general sheet metal project will recall that it's a similar structure, and that is that there's a county economic development revenue bond that will be authorized if the council approves it, will be authorized by the county council and issued by the county. It's anticipated that because of the project installation time period, et cetera, and the desire to maximize the term of that bond, it won't be issued until a year from now. But all the steps will be taken in the next couple months by the Redevelopment Commission and the various other bodies of the county to approve those bonds and to approve the establishment of a new economic development area, which will be an allocation area or TIF area that will be located in the IEC. It is located, the maps that are in your resolution will show you that the area is located just north of the New Carlisle, the existing New Carlisle Economic Development Area. And it is approximately 1,800 acres upon which the project will be on 1,100, but 1,800 is the total. And the tax increment that will be created from the project will be used to pay the debt service on the bonds. And the Redevelopment Commission will do two things. One, the most important step, and the step today, is actually declaring the area. Under the statute, that declaration moves to the Area Plan Commission, who has to review it and determine whether they approve that step. Then it moves to the Board of Commissioners as the executive for the county. those steps will be coming up in the coming days. The 16th is the meeting of the Area Plan Commission. The 23rd is the meeting of the county commissioners. If the county commissioners should approve and the area plan approves, we give a public notice. There are tax impact statements that are done by the county's municipal advisors and are provided to all the taxing units. That information is then shared with all the taxing units, et cetera. There's a public meeting at your September meeting, and at that point you can determine to confirm the area. Once you confirm the area is established. As there's administrative steps of recording your action with the county recorder and the county auditor and filing with the state. So that's the procedure. Also at the September meeting, you would pledge the TIF that will be generated towards the repayment of those bonds. And so simultaneously with your steps, there are steps that are being taken by the county council, by the county's Economic Development Commission to approve the issuance of those bonds. And so those two actions are happening at the same time. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Bill, would this then become a line item that on our monthly meetings, essentially? A budget line item?
Yep.
So we'd call it the Solar Project Economic Development Area. Really sexy
Clever.
name for
Clever.
it, so.
That's all.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2022-09?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, having a motion second, are there any further discussion or questions?
Mr. Baxmeyer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Critchlow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Gripe, how do you vote? And Mr. Jordan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do we have any other additional business before us?
Not at this time.
I have two questions.
Yes.
So back in May, we contracted, I think, with DLZ on to start taking steps on the trail project, moving to the other side of the county.
Yes.
So I was just curious if there was anything going, I mean, I know this is a slow burn.
Yeah,
but-
so the contracts have been signed. They're in the process of doing some field work right now, and we anticipate at least, they're required to provide, I believe, 3 alignment concepts. And I don't believe that those have been completed at this point in time, but I will check and I'll let you know.
So I assume like North Liberty is being engaged in all this.
Yes,
and
yeah,
would
both
eventually-
ends in the middle. So Lakeville, North Liberty, and.
Be interested
end.
maybe
So-
in the future if there
Yep.
was some sort of combined meeting where everybody could, I don't know, share thoughts.
Yep.
Something to think about in the future. And then I was just curious, if anybody has a question about that.
Not about that. I got a
Oh,
question.
okay. Well, then my only other question is comprehensive plan. I know we got a big meeting this month. Everything going okay there otherwise?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I'm on the steering committee task force for economic development. So the summit had working groups that were laid out. So there's 8 pillars of the comp plan. And so each working group is then tasked with coming up with goals and recommendations on how to get at those goals that then support the overarching. So those are going to be coming up here I think the first couple of meetings are next week. And then there'll be 4 to 6 kind of Zoom virtual meetings for all of those pillars over the next couple of months to
Okay.
kind of
Public
hammer out
seems-
that.
Public seems really engaged in it, so.
Yep,
So
Yep.
It's great, it's great. Thank you. Go ahead, Carl, sorry.
Just a question.
But they're always looking for more members to be on committees, so.
I've got enough to do.
Yes.
Just a question on the county-owned parcels. I know you sent out a whole listing. Where do we stand on that?
So we're working through on the mowing side of things, and then as we work through on the mowing side, we say, gosh, why do we own these? So for example, the Snowberry Road property that will be subject to a disposition is one of those that was now on that side of the ledger, so to speak. So, but we hope to have something, we had a conversation about it yesterday, so I would hope within the next month or so, we'll have a better idea of what could be a potential disposition. And then it's finding the staffing to be able to do that, so, and the process to be able to do
Pretty
that. As-
extensive list.
It is, and as Phil can attest, the process to dispose of land is, depending on who owns it and how it's titled, every piece has like a different process to be able to do that, so.
All right, so we move to our public comment. Anyone who would like to speak, we ask them to keep it to a 3-minute time frame and then give your name and your address as you address the.
Good morning, Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle. Up again comes the Snowberry Road property, which, as it turns out, with demolition costs and acquisition costs, the county paid $535,000 for. That comes to about $29,700 an acre. And now we come here today and find out that we're going to, it's appraised at $141,000. I think any reasonable person would have to admit that had you left the house and the barn and the well and septic on that property, it would be worth far more than $7,833 an acre, $141,000. This is why we need to let things happen in proper order. Let Abby Wiles and her team develop a comprehensive land use plan so we know what can go on that land. We can get some suitors for that land, people who want to do something there, instead of potentially tying Abby's hands with allowing somebody to come in and bring a product in there which isn't going to be allowed by a new comprehensive land use plan. But now we go to, somebody goes to Abby behind closed doors. This is why we don't like closed door meetings, because there's usually some arm twisting that goes on and says, you know, I know you don't like, and I use rat poison as a figurative. Rat poison represents anything you don't want going into the air, the water, the soil. You don't, okay, we'll only put half of our rat poison that we normally put in the soil if you let us come in there. There comes a little bit of arm twisting that can take place if we let her and her team proceed. And I talked to Chris Brown about this, and he said the two things have to proceed together. But proceeding together kind of hamstrings Abby, could possibly hamstring Abby a little bit. When there's something that, well, you know, these guys, we'd really like to get them in here, but yeah, they do have this one product that we really don't approve of, but, you know, we could turn our heads and look the other way and not worry about that in this instance. Don't get people who want to come in here before we know exactly what is going to be allowed in here by the new comp plan. We need to table any new land acquisitions, anything of that type in the IEC area until the comprehensive land use plan is on the table and we know what rules we're following. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for your work. My name is Deborah Durrell, 21677 Auten Road, South Bend. I'd like to share the recent joke that my son sent me. He does this every once in a while, and I've read them here before. I always thought Albert Einstein was a real person. Turns out he's just a theoretical physicist. So I'm reading this to you because it leads into endorsing some of what Dan has been saying. When Dan talks about the concern about the comprehensive land use plan, and he uses the example of rat poison, he's been doing this at a lot of the meetings, and I see a reaction, and honestly, I have the same reaction, like, oh no, come on, don't exaggerate, because we wouldn't do that. But we do. You know, everybody does things like that. We're all like Jim Gaffigans, you know, with our orange peels on the kitchen counter. We're just gonna like leave them here and cover them up with a Scott towel, paper towel, and Maybe I'll make some potpourri with it later, and it's like I was never here. And so even property owners are capable of doing things because they think, oh, just this once, it'll be okay. But we're at a point in time with the number of us and the number of conveniences that we have, that there is no such thing as just this once anymore. And this is why I have put these little Kleenex packages on all of your placemats, place settings, because it's a good idea. This is bamboo tissue, so that we don't have to cut down any more trees. And we all know how important trees are to us right now. And always have been, really, but we're just realizing it more. But when you really look at this product, this was made in China. And we know how many emissions shipping costs. So how many emissions were released to ship this product to us? Also, they're all wrapped in plastic. This is not recyclable post-consumer use plastic. Where is this plastic going to go? And they're not selling these in China probably. They're selling them to us because we have this green idea and we want the economy. I bought these from a local store here that specializes in a lot of sustainable products. And so I'm making these points to illustrate the importance for the comprehensive land use plan. Nobody wants Big Brother looking over our shoulders and telling us what to do.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Ellis. Your time's up.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to say one more sentence. And that is, that's why the 8 pillars are important. And the pushback that we're already
Mr. Ellis,
getting
your time's up. I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
is
You can have a
like
seat. Thank
a
you.
village. It takes a village. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Anyone else like to step up and make a comment? No one online? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Mr. Baxmeyer?
yes.
Mr. Critchlow?
Yes.
Mr. Gripe? And Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.